Hi everyone, my name is Nika. It is officially March, which means that spring is just around the corner. So for today's video, I'm really excited to be sharing with you 13 free knitting patterns that you can make this spring. Now, I actually wanted to make this video on the 1st of March and release it as soon as possible. It is currently the 10th of March. And as you might hear by my voice, I unfortunately caught the flu and got a case of bronchitis, and I've been sitting it out for like a week and a half, waiting until I can get better to film this video. I'm not fully back to normal, but I did want to make this video and release it so that you guys can hopefully find some free, amazing patterns to make for this spring before it's too late and before it gets too warm in some places. So please excuse my voice and if I take any sips of water in between. But let's get started, shall we? Now, the patterns that I chose for this video are a blend of clothing pieces as well as accessories, and I'm going to go through them in no particular order, and hopefully you can find something that you would like to make. So the first pattern is called the Melody Cardigan by Violet Knits. It is a raglan construction cardigan that can be made with either 2 strands of mohair or 1 strand of bulky yarn, and it is knit using 9mm. That is US size 13 needles, so it should be worked up very easily and very fast. It is a really beautiful cardigan that can be made to be very lightweight, especially if you knit it with mohair, that you can throw over any of your spring clothes, and especially if you live in a warm climate and it already gets hot during spring, but you still want to have something maybe in the evening if it gets chilly to throw over your outfit. And the designer actually made the cardigan in a lovely pink color, which I think suits the spring atmosphere very nicely. This cardigan comes in sizes XS to XL. So if you have any maybe leftover mohair that's lying around, this would be a perfect cardigan to make for this spring, and it will hopefully work up very fast. The next spring free pattern is actually a 2-piece set. It is a blouse and skirt set called Hällevik, and it is designed by Wool & Beyond and published in Svartafaret. The pattern features a crossover blouse with short puff sleeves and this textured pattern that kind of reminds me of tweed, and it also features a crossover skirt. It is done in 2 main colors, which gives it this wonderful tweed-like appearance. Now, this pattern is published by Svartafaret, which is a yarn brand, so for this pattern they suggest to use their own yarn, but of course you can substitute it. And in this case, they suggest using Svartafaret Cecilia, which is a cotton, viscose, and linen blend. And I think that would give it a very wonderful kind of light, summery feel. But of course, you can substitute it. And I believe they suggest superwash wool or baby llama that can be used for this pattern as well. So you can pretty much use any DK weight yarn for this pattern. And it is knit on 3.5mm needles, that is US size 4. And it actually comes in a variety of sizes from XS to 4XL. I think this is such a lovely 2-piece set that I would actually really like to make, but maybe for Korean weather, I might kind of delay it and put it in my summer knit patterns. But for anyone who lives in a warmer climate, I think this would be a very nice pattern to make. Now, for anyone who, like me, lives in a climate where spring is not that warm just yet, and it's perhaps too cold to make that 2-piece set that I just mentioned, this next pattern would be perfect for you. This is the Rose Leaf Sweater by Terrific Knits. It is a circular yoke top-down sweater that features puff sleeves as well as floral design on the top part of the sweater. The designer herself uses brushed alpaca silk that is held together, which gives you this super bulky weight, but you can pretty much use any super bulky weight yarn that would give you the gauge of this pattern. And it is knit on 6mm needles, that is US size 10. So again, I think this would work up quite fast. And what I really love about this pattern is that, as I mentioned, it has this floral pattern on the top part of the sweater, but it's not too kind of over the top, but it also gives it a lovely sort of floral spring-like touch. So I think this sweater would fit in perfectly into many people's closets. The only thing is this pattern unfortunately comes only in one size, so M to L size, but the author does give instructions on how to adapt it to whatever size you would need. So if it's something that is interesting to you, of course, this pattern, like any other pattern in this video, is free. So maybe you could check it out and see if you could adapt it to your own size. If the sweater is a little bit toned down for you and you would like to make something a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more reminiscent of the flowers that are blossoming, and the wonderful spring atmosphere, then this next pattern I think is really for you. And that is the Ranunkel or Buttercup pullover. The designer of this is Agostins, and this is published by Yarbo. Actually, I think the pattern describes this top much better than I could ever put it in my words, so I'm just going to read it out to you. Ranunkel Buttercup is a retro-inspired top in its fit and silhouette, which will lead your thoughts to Buttercup's stratified and condensed appearance. Its billowing sleeves and body contrast with a tight-fitting neck, which frames a voluminous ribbed collar and finishes with an I-cord bow at the neck. A particular technique used for this blouse, German short rows, gives the yoke, sleeves, and body a characteristic fit. I think this is a wonderful description. It's this really whimsical top. It has ruffles, it has a bow, it has different stitches that are used in this top. It is also short-sleeved, which I think is perfect for spring weather. So I think this would be a really amazing pattern to make, and I would personally love to make it myself. I mean, just looking at it gets me excited. Now, this pattern also comes in a variety of sizes from XS to 4XL, and it uses 1 to 2 strands of worsted wool that is held together with 1 strand of silk mohair. And the reason I say 1 to 2 is based on what part of the pattern you're making. Sometimes it uses 1 strand, sometimes it uses 2 strands. And the needle sizes that are used for this pattern are also very diverse. So it has 5.5 millimeter, that is US size 9, 9mm, that is US size 13, and 7mm, that is US size 10.5 to 11 needles. But again, these needles are actually quite big, so I think this top, also being short-sleeved, would work up very fast. So if you enjoyed some whimsical knitting pieces, I think this would really fit your style. Now, this next pattern is actually an accessory, and it is leg warmers, specifically Agata leg warmers by We Are Knitters. This is an item that I think would fit perfectly into spring wardrobe if you are the type of person who starts wearing skirts and flowy dresses in spring, but it still gets a little bit chilly. I think these leg warmers would be perfect to keep you warm. These leg warmers are made using fingering or sock weight yarn, and this particular pattern suggests using a merino and alpaca blend. And it is knit on 3mm, that is US size 2.5 needles. I think leg warmers are such a lovely design to wear with maybe short skirts. Unfortunately, it doesn't really fit into my closet, but I love seeing it on other people. So if you are one of those people who likes leg warmers, this would be a perfect free pattern for you to make. Although leg warmers are perhaps only suitable for certain people who enjoy wearing them, I think this next pattern would fit so many people's styles, and that is the Berry t-shirt by Maria Solftoft that is published by Hobby. Again, Hobby is a yarn brand, so for this pattern, they suggest using their own yarn, but you can of course substitute it. What this is, it's a striped raglan t-shirt. So again, you can make it with yarn that would fit the spring weather that you're having, but it has short sleeves, it's quite tight. So I think in general, short sleeve sweaters, short sleeve t-shirts, maybe made in perhaps a bit thicker yarn, are perfect for spring weather in my eyes. And this design is actually made in a lovely cherry and pink striped colors, which again suits the spring floral theme, I think, very well. This pattern is made using 2 strands of silk mohair with 1 strand of worsted weight, viscose and wool blend, but of course you can substitute it with any other yarn that is bulky weight. And it is made using 6mm, that is US size 10 needles. And it comes in a variety of sizes from XS to 2XL. I am personally kind of on the verge of making this pattern myself. So if you end up making this pattern or any of the patterns that I mentioned in this video, or if you have actually made them in the past, please do leave a comment down below and let me know. I'd be really curious to hear how your experience goes. Now, this next pattern is for people who love to layer pieces and specifically love layered vests. I think vests are a very spring item. Again, you can have maybe a lighter blouse on the bottom under the vest, but then for some extra warmth, if a sweater is too warm for you to wear, a vest would be a perfect piece. And so this next one is called Edgar Slipover, that is made by Colibri by Yolanda and published again by Hobby. It is a V-neck vest which can be actually made into a round neck vest with side ribbing for a modern touch. And I really like this side ribbing design. I think it makes it stand out from some of the more basic vests that we see out there, but it still has a very modern construction and gives a very modern appearance. Now, it is made with 1 strand merino and 2 strands of silk mohair and is knit on 6mm, that is US size 10 needle. So again, most of these patterns that I'm mentioning, they're made with quite big needles, which I think would be wonderful to make quickly for spring while it still lasts. And this sweater comes in sizes XS to 5XL. If you go to the Ravelry page, it actually says that you have to pay, but then it says that a free version is also available. And what you have to do for the free version, you just have to go to Hobby's website and sign up for their newsletter, I believe. And then you can easily access their free pattern. Now, this next pattern I'm really excited to talk about because this is one that I've actually made ever since I started planning for this video and then got down with the flu. When I was sick, I made this literally in 1 or 2 days. This is a light short scarf called The Simple Thing by Heathland Knits. And it really reminds me of the Sophie scarf by Petite Knits. But this pattern has, of course, some modifications. It looks a little bit different, but it is also a free pattern, which I think is perfect. It is made using DK weight yarn, so you can use any DK weight that you have, using 4.5mm, that is US size 7 needles. And the length of the scarf is adjustable, so what I love about this pattern is that the author pretty much gives you instructions on how to make it as long as you want based on the weight of your yarn or how much yarn you have available. So in my case, I actually adjusted this pattern a little bit to have pointier ends, and also I did the increases and the decreases less frequently than suggested in the pattern, which makes it more elongated, so it's really easy to adjust it. And if you're on the search for a wonderful, light, but still warm spring scarf, I think this would be perfect for you. Now, this next piece is also an accessory, and it is perhaps for those who live in cold climates where it's still somewhat cold, but you would like to maybe switch to some lighter looking pieces or some more feminine pieces. And that is the Renga beret by Rita Perica, that is published by Novita Knits. This is a timeless beret that I think would fit in perfectly with the spring atmosphere. As a beret, of course, it has a very sort of feminine feel, but it will also keep you warm if spring is still cold wherever you live. It is made using Aran weight. The designer actually suggests using wool, which again is perfect for keeping you warm. And it is knit using 5mm needles, that is US size 8. And this beret actually comes in 3 different sizes as well. Now, I think for Korea, maybe a beret would be too warm. And personally, I'm not a huge wearer of berets or anything on my head pretty much, but I love seeing it on other people. Now, this next pattern is maybe for those who do not really like cardigans. So maybe the Melody cardigan was not really for you, but you still want to make something out of mohair. And this is the Watercolor Horizons, a sweater by Drops Design. It is a mohair sweater that you can make with 2 strands of silk mohair and then using 5mm, that is US size 8 needles, or of course you can use any other fingering weight yarn. It comes in sizes S to 3XL. So this pattern is called the Watercolor Horizons, and I can really say that the design that is featured on the Ravelry page actually looks like watercolor. Of course, you can make the sweater in one color, or as is featured on the page of this pattern, you can make it using different colors of mohair. So you can either use maybe a lot of pastel colors, and in that case, the stripes won't be very visible, and it will actually look like watercolors, which is the name of the sweater. Or you can maybe use more contrast yarn colors, so you would have these stripes more visible. You can pretty much customize it to use any colors that you like. Personally, I think the pastel colors that are featured on this page are really wonderful and beautiful and fitting of the spring atmosphere and the blooming flowers. So I think this would be a really wonderful pattern to make. Now, this next pattern is actually a pair of socks, which are called the Yolanda socks by Laurel Knits. The reason I chose these for this video is I think that they feature this wonderful, not lace, but sort of texture on the socks that kind of reminds me of ribbons, but somehow it has a very wonderful spring feel. So if you have been looking around to make socks that maybe fit with spring atmosphere, definitely suggest looking into these. Now, these are made using light fingering weight yarn, using 2.25mm, that is US size 1 needles. Now, if maybe accessories are not really for you, and the sweater and the cardigan that I mentioned have too light of a structure for you, I would definitely suggest looking into this next sweater called the Elliot sweater by Wool and the Gang. It is a very sort of feminine spring-like sweater with a crossover in the front, but I think it's still a very sort of basic, modern fit that you can wear with so many different outfits. This pattern is using bulky weight yarn, using 5mm needles, that is US size 8. So again, not very small needles, and hopefully you'll be able to make this up quite fast. And it comes in 4 different sizes. I think this would be such a wonderful addition to my closet personally as well. I really love that it's sort of a basic sweater, but due to this crossover that happens in the front, it's not too boring. So if you prefer these sort of more feminine, modern style sweaters, I think this definitely would be for you. And the last pattern on this list is actually a very exciting one. This pattern is called the Busy Bee Cardigan by Drops Design. And the exciting part about this pattern is that it is a retro design. Now, I'm not sure which year this was released in, but if you look at the pictures of this pattern, you can see that this design was released a long time ago. However, of course, the pattern still exists, so nothing is stopping you from making it, right? What I love about this pattern in particular is that it features these bees and flowers motifs, which I think is quite unique, and I haven't seen many pieces around that feature specific motif designs on the sweaters. So this is a really wonderful cardigan to make. The pattern itself suggests using cotton, but you can of course use any worsted weight yarn. And it is knit using 5mm, that is US size 8 needles. Unfortunately, it comes in only 2 sizes, small to medium or medium to large, but if you are an experienced knitter, of course, you can probably adjust it to your needed size as well. I think most of these patterns I kind of chose based on what, in my eyes, spring knitting looks like. So it has a lot of short sleeves, a lot of flowy feminine structures and feels, a lot of pastel colors, a lot of pinks. So I really hope if this sort of aesthetic is something that you enjoy knitting, that this video gave you inspiration to look into any of this pattern and maybe make one for yourself. After all, they're all free, so you only really need to have the yarn and then you're pretty much ready to go. And if you're unsure, what I love is that you can download any of these patterns, look through them, and then decide if you want to make them. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of the patterns that I mentioned were released by either yarn brands or knitting magazines. And these often release their patterns for free in general. I think one of the best examples is Drops Design. Drops is a yarn brand, but under the name of Drops Design, they release patterns using their yarn. And if you check Drops Design on Ravelry, for example, it has like thousands of patterns to choose from. So if maybe the patterns that I mentioned today were not truly for you, maybe you didn't enjoy something specific about that pattern, I strongly suggest for you to check out the Ravelry pages of these designers or yarn brands. And I can guarantee you that you will find so many more free patterns and so many more pieces for inspiration. I hope this video was useful for you. I hope it at least gave you some inspiration to start making spring clothing. At least personally, I am so excited that spring is finally coming around. I'm so excited to start making lighter and more feminine pieces. I really can't wait for it to get warm and sunny and for flowers to start blooming again. Hopefully this video comes out early enough for you to maybe make any of these pieces before it gets too hot and before summer comes around. If you enjoyed this video and if you found it inspiring or helpful, or if you ended up making any of the patterns that I mentioned in this video, please leave a comment down below. Or if you have any other spring pattern suggestions, please do share those in the comments below as well. I think there's just so much information online, and it's really easy to kind of get lost and overwhelmed by the variety of patterns that is available, and also kind of get caught in the pieces that are trending. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that there is so much more out there that you can make. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope in my next video I can come back with a fully recovered voice. But until then, have fun with your spring knitting, and I hope you're staying healthy and happy and are having a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye.